road safety support. We're a not-for-profit company that supports the enforcement side of road safety. One of the three great pillars of road safety and driving down casualties in our country. Yes, I had a speech based around some of Barack Obama's statements about how we could work together. But really, it would be preaching to the converted. The people who are here in this room and the people who have been courteous enough to stay to the end of a long day, despite the fact there are always many other pressures on us, do not need motivation. They don't need some ex-cop to walk up on stage and deliver what we in Wales would call the hwyl. We're not playing a short rugby match. We're not playing even a longer cricket match. We're in this because we believe it. And it would be arrogant for anybody to stand on this stage and try to motivate this audience. You are motivated, you live the struggle. So what I thought I would do is say a little about how I value the day, because I've been to hundreds of conferences. And I have to say that some of them have provided an excellent opportunity to catch up on my sleep. And others have provided an excellent... Don't look at me like that. Neil from the Motor Insurance Bureau knows my ability to sleep at the drop of a hat, you see. So he's just looking at me with contempt because he's seen me with my eyes closed in the past. But the truth of the matter is that this is not one of those days. This is a day when our speakers across the day have brought us new ideas or challenged us with new ideas. And I just want to say a few words about bringing those things together to help us think about what we do when we leave here. Because conferences are nice. Yeah, we can sleep. Yes, we get a day out. Yes, we don't have to sit in the office and do the admin. But actually, what's the value? The value is only translated if we take the learning back and do something with it. And so we were challenged this morning. I mean, I was particularly struck by Dr. Lucy Fuchs talking to us about youth, about adolescence. So the speeches, or to the quotes that she made, or that she recovered from Shakespeare and indeed from older times, the police service is used to it because some of the oldest legislation in this country from the 13th century, the Breach of the Peace Act, still in force, is there because young people were too busy playing football to do their archery practice. And in fact, it was accompanied by a tirade in government at that time about the young people of today are too busy having their fun instead of doing their duty. So over 700 years, nothing much has changed. And I valued this morning's talk because it reminded us that our young drivers are young people. They are not some separate species, as we tend to hear and see in the media, or occasionally think of in our silos. They are young people. And they're there to be valued because they're going to pay for us in the future to be in really nice old age people's homes. Okay? So we need to get enough of them through to adulthood to work hard enough to keep us in the lifestyles that we've come to expect. So, linking the thoughts of that with our guys from TRL and our speakers, all of whom have delivered innovation, the ideas of technology and innovation are changing all the time. Our cars are changing. Our roads are changing. The technology we use not just to move the vehicle, but to actually understand what's going on around us is changing all the time. Even the most basic sat-navs that we had a few years ago are now old hat. The pace of technology innovation in the car industry has speeded up immensely. When I was younger, it took 5 years for a new technical innovation in the top of the range vehicles to make it into standard cars. It is now less than one model year. So things that are coming into Mercedes and Jaguar and top of the range Fords and Volvos will be in common cars within a year or 2 years if there is a financial imperative to do it. So things are getting faster. Technology is getting faster. So we have young people biologically the same as they were 700 years ago. We have technology that's increasing in pace. I have to say I didn't know that mice got drunk when they hang out with other mice. That's very reassuring. I can't think why it's reassuring, but it is vaguely reassuring. It must be some kind of thing across all species that when we hang out with our pals, we drink more. It sounds good to me, and it's a great justification for what I plan on this weekend. But the third thing I want to talk about is globalization. In the last year, I've been able to work in India, in the Philippines, in Houston, and in the United Kingdom and in Europe. And what I see is some things changing. And the first thing to think about that affects us in this room is that our young people, just young people, do not come from a homogenous group that we had 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. The minority communities in our country are disproportionately represented in young people. And the figure I know is that over 20% of people under 18 in Sheffield and South Yorkshire are from minority communities with very different cultural heritages and backgrounds. And yet, as I look around, we're not reflecting that diversity in our communities, even in our own. So we have to think out of the box to actually find new ways to speak to them, to deal with them. And that is not just limited to our country. We talk about having 90 languages spoken in some of our big cities. Here in London, over 50% are not from the white mainstream community. I work in Dubai with 195 different communities. The process of globalization is increasing. I was told, oh, you could get Brexit into your discussion. I have no interest in getting Brexit into my discussion, but what I'll say is this: regardless of whether we are in the European community or outside the European community, the movement of people around the world is not set to slacken. It is set to increase. Globalization in migration is huge. And so we need to think internationally. We need to think about the way that we deal with the problems that we're dealing with internationally. We need to deal with them on a global basis. Because we are increasingly going to see people who went through driving instructions that were very different, who come from a roads culture that is very different, and whose experiences are very different. And when you ally that to the nature of youth, you have a whole new set of challenges to deal with. And we should not be scared of it. We have technology, we have innovation. We have skills, we have talent. We have the young people. They're not the problem, they're also the solution. They will find ways to actually regulate the future. Now, we have a road safety support conference for our members who are the enforcement agencies, the safety partnerships all over the UK. And I brought a futurologist in to talk to them, who said, you're all going to be redundant in 10 years when we have autonomous driving vehicles, so nobody worry about it, let's have a good evening. Okay? That's a pretty threatening thing to say to an enforcement, safety camera enforcement group. But he got away with it because between now and then, we have to manage those transitions. Regardless of what technology does, man can undo. Regardless of what safety procedures we can put in, humanity can remove them. Okay? As a 17-year-old, I went on a canal boating holiday. That canal boat was regulated to 2.5 miles an hour. It took me and my mates less than 4 minutes to remove the small block of wood that prevented the throttle being opened correctly. Okay? And I guarantee that this generation are finding new ways to defeat the boring constraints that society puts upon them. But equally, they will develop the ways that we can all live together in the future. So, I'm not here to motivate you to do something special. I'm here to encourage you through competition, through innovation, through ideas to try things. Some of those things will work. Some of those things will not. We will find new ways of driving towards that vision of 0 casualties on the road over the next 10 years, 5 years, indeed, Vision 2020. And we will participate ever more in things like the Decade of Action for the United Nations, which we don't even mention, but which are getting ever more important in the rest of the world, that's fighting rising death trends, not reducing trends. So we can harness that energy, we can harness that enthusiasm with the experience that is in this room and with the innovations that are aimed at young drivers to provide a safer environment for the future. All I want to say is, given the way that the pace of technology is increasing, we have to learn to run faster, otherwise it will leave us behind. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you to the organisers for this event, and may you have a safe